Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. I'm going to let you in on a little secret you may not be ready to hear as you explore the world of non-alcoholic beers and alcohol-free spirits and wines. While you may not be getting the buzz, these alcohol imposters can still be harmful. And I'm going to give you some alternative ways to think about the risks associated with non-alcoholic drinks so that you can make a smart and informed decision as to what's best for you and your recovery. I'm going to share some deeper insights and advanced recovery concepts that you've probably never thought of when you're considering drinking non-alcoholic beer or not. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. Thank you for hanging out with me today and listening to the pod. I know this is going to ruffle some feathers because the world is embracing mocktails in full force right now. And I know that's a welcomed alternative for many people, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is not going to be a conversation about if it's right or wrong, because it's neither. This isn't about making a judgment on your choice or my choice. I want to share with you the research, my personal experience, and some of the issues you've probably never considered that create unexpected risks, especially if you're pretty early in sobriety, because there are a lot of insights that you probably aren't aware of yet. Now, you know I'm obsessed with neuroscience. And when you work with me as your coach, a lot of what I do is neuroscience based. Because if you're going to invest your time and energy into working with me, we're going to use tools that are proven to work. And that's how I built my own sobriety too. I only wanted to do the things that I knew would work. And this issue is no different. There are brain processes at work when you drink non-alcoholic beers and mocktails, and that's part of what we're going to talk about in this episode. I just did a short video for my Facebook group on this topic, and that's what motivated me to do a full episode and go into a little more detail than I did in the video. And I want to start with sharing my experience. This is what happened for me. And it's actually pretty funny. It's not terrible. It wasn't a horrible experience at all. But here's what I did. I am a big mixed martial arts fan. I love the UFC. So this was in probably my first 6 months of sobriety. So a long time ago. I'm 18 years sober. I'll be 19 in January. So this was a long time ago. I go to watch a fight with my friends. And I decided I would drink non-alcoholic beer. And back then it was just O'Doul's. And you were lucky if you went somewhere. You were lucky if they even had a few O'Doul's, right? It's not something that everybody stocked. Like today, they have all of this crazy selection of non-alcoholic beers. 18 years ago, that was not the case, my friend. So I'm having O'Doul's. I'm sitting with my friends. We're watching the fight. And here's what happened. First of all, I drank O'Doul's the same way I drank regular beer, right? I was drinking 100 of them. Every time the waitress walked by, I'm ordering another one, right? It was drinking behavior. Then I had to go to the bathroom every 10 to 15 minutes, just like regular beer. And at the end of the night, I still had a ridiculous bar tab because I drank 100 of them, just like regular beer. And at some point, my brain got a little irritated. Not irritated like it wanted a regular beer. That's not what happened for me. What happened for me was my brain was like, okay, hold up, dude. We're drinking all these beers. We're putting in the work and doing the drinking, but we're not getting the feeling. We're not getting the buzz. So I'm putting in the work and I'm not getting the result. You have to understand, if you have an alcohol problem, we drink for the feeling it gives us. We drink for the effect. That's why we get an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. This is a conditioned response. And I want you to really understand this is the brain piece of this. We have conditioned our brains to believe alcohol is the solution or whatever other substance or behavior, right? Whatever the current addiction of the day is. Our brain believes when I am uncomfortable, lonely, angry, I got my feelings hurt, if I'm feeling insecure, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, nobody will ever love me, I'll never have the job I love, I'll never make enough money. All of those things that we think 1,000 times a day, your brain is conditioned to believe when you have that discomfort, you reach for the drink and it takes away that discomfort. The drink becomes the solution. This is a conditioned response. And it's what gets us in trouble, right? This is how our relationship with alcohol becomes so unhealthy because we rely on it for the effect. So when I'm sitting there drinking non-alcoholic beers, my brain is in its own thing thinking we're getting a solution, but there was no solution. We just had the drinks, but we didn't have the effect. And that was problematic for my little alcohol conditioned brain. It was also recreating my drinking life and drinking behaviors. And I don't want to recreate or engage in drinking behaviors in my sober life. I remember a couple of years ago, I did Whole30. It's an elimination diet, right? For 30 days, you eliminate all of these foods that can cause inflammation in your body, and you eat whole foods in their whole form. No additives, no preservatives, nothing. Meat, fruit, vegetables in their whole form, right? Really clean eating. And obviously, you eliminate sugar in this elimination diet because sugar really is kind of the devil. So no sugar and no artificial sweeteners either. No diet sodas, no sugar-free this or sugar-free that, because they still have artificial sweeteners in them. And one of the things the creator of Whole30 talks about, she talks about don't try to find substitutes for sugar, substitutes for dessert, because you're still engaging in the sugar addicted behavior. It keeps that brain process engaged, that conditioned response. It keeps it fully engaged instead of fighting it and letting that conditioned response die down, right? Become unconditioned. If you're doing this Whole30 and you're spending all your time running around looking for recipes for the banana pancakes and the homemade syrup sweetened with monk fruit, and there's a million ways you can do this. But what happens is you're not letting that unhealthy relationship with sugar die down. You're still engaging in the process and you're keeping it alive and well, which keeps the craving alive and well. It's the same thing with drinking. These are the kind of pitfalls that you have to be aware of when you're making a choice like engaging in non-alcoholic beers or mocktails or not. This is the stuff I want you to be thinking about. It's drinking behavior. It's old behavior from my old life. And do I really want to drag all that shit into my new life with me? Me personally, I don't. If you remember a while back too, I did an episode about the 3 stages of relapse, and I'll link that in the show notes if you want to go back and listen to that episode. But the 3 stages of relapse, the first 2 are emotional and mental. And these behaviors, just like I talked about the sugar and finding substitutes for desserts, sugar-free desserts, these are the emotional and mental parts of relapse. This is what can be triggered when you drink non-alcoholic drinks. You can still be triggering these first 2 stages of relapse, the emotional and the mental. And that'll make a lot more sense if you go back and listen to that episode. Like I said, I'll link it in the show notes so you can get there right from your podcast app. The other thing I want to talk about is, why are we so caught up on what's in our glass, right? This is part of the preoccupation with alcohol. Part of being an alcoholic is we're very preoccupied with alcohol. And you hear me talk about, like, when I walk into a restaurant, it still is my natural response that I will look over at the bar and see what kind of tequilas they have. It's kind of conditioned. It's just who I am. And part of that is probably because I was a bartender for 20 years, so that is a natural inclination for me to just be curious. But we have this preoccupation with alcohol. Where is it? Who's having it? Who's not having it? How much is there? It's all being preoccupied with alcohol. See, non-alcoholic people don't have that. They don't ever think about alcohol. They don't care what you're drinking. They don't care what they're drinking. They don't care what's in your glass. No one is attached to what liquid is in your glass except someone with a drinking problem. And if someone else, wherever you are, is worried about what's in your glass, that's just another alcoholic, right? If you have the person going, hey, what are you drinking? Do you need a drink? Can I get you a drink? What would you like to drink? That's just another alcoholic, right? Because nobody else cares. Non-alcoholic people have zero attachment to what liquid is in anyone's glass, including their own glass. So that's just another mental, emotional piece of the puzzle to think about. Like, I don't want to be controlled by what's in my glass. I don't want it to control my mood, control my anxiety, control whether I enjoy myself or don't enjoy myself. That's a lot of power to give to the liquid in your glass. Like, we've got to get real about this. It's weird. Like, nobody else is thinking about this stuff. Another old behavior that can really be engaged with non-alcoholic beers and mocktails is the seeking behavior, right? How much time do you spend looking up recipes, scrolling Instagram on all the mocktail pages and looking at the pictures and reading the captions and reading the recipes and Googling it and buying the ingredients? And then what? Like, are you going to create this bar, non-alcohol bar at your house? Like, that's drinking behavior. Are you going to go to multiple stores to find the non-alcoholic wine you want, or the non-alcoholic gin, the alcohol-free gin that you want? Maybe you've got to go to 2 stores or 3 stores. Maybe you have to go to the liquor store. It's seeking behavior. That's drinking behavior. I don't want drinking behavior in my sober life. I want sober behavior. All of these little things were elements of my drinking life. And you have to analyze also what you're committing your time and energy to. All the time and energy people put into non-alcoholic drinks and looking them up and getting all the stuff and talking about them and wondering if it's okay to drink them, that's a lot of time and energy you're investing. I would rather you invest that kind of energy into your recovery. Like, look at what is your biggest struggle in life today. Maybe it's anger or sadness or loneliness. Maybe it's people pleasing, codependence, a job you hate. Maybe your relationship needs a lot of work. Figure out what your hardest thing is today and invest that kind of time and energy into actually fixing yourself and your life. If you spend 20 minutes scrolling Instagram mocktail pages, that's 20 minutes you could have spent just getting your shit together instead of focused on what might be in your glass at some event that you may or may not be at some unknown point in the future that may or may not ever happen. You see what I'm saying? Like, what are you really putting your time and energy into? How valuable is it what you're really investing your time and energy into? Sometimes we get caught up in these issues, right? Mocktails, non-alcoholic drinks. I think we can do this a lot. Sometimes I feel like I see this a lot with the labels and people not wanting to be called an alcoholic. Now it's alcohol use disorder. A few years ago, it was substance use disorder, and people want to be alcohol free. We get caught up in these issues as a way to avoid the real issues. So again, look at your commitment level to something that is so inconsequential in the big picture and refocus your energy on something of real value and importance that's going to move you farther along in your life and create real long-term change for you. Now, the last thing I'll say about this, I do think that people can probably successfully drink a non alcoholic drink that was not your drink of choice. So, I drank a lot of beer, so non-alcoholic beer probably isn't the wisest choice for me, but I could probably drink one of the alcohol-free wines or something. I could certainly do one of the alcohol-free spirits, like a alcohol-free gin and tonic or something. I mean, it tastes like shit. Gin's terrible anyway, but I could probably do those things and it wouldn't trigger my brain the same way. It wouldn't re-engage those processes the same way because those weren't things that I drank a lot anyway. I don't have the attachment to those drinks because they weren't my drink of choice. I was beer and tequila. But I could never, ever for any reason have a non-alcoholic tequila. That would be extraordinarily risky for me. I don't want to smell tequila. I don't want to taste tequila. I had a great love affair with tequila that will never die. And I definitely do not want to engage that process in my brain because that could really put me at risk. And I'm definitely not doing that. So you can think about it like that too, right? If you're a beer drinker, maybe you can drink an alcohol-free wine and it's not that big of a deal for you. Now, I also believe there's a huge difference in what back in the day we considered a mocktail, right? Is throwing a bunch of juices in a glass and, splash some soda water in there for some fizz and put a lime on it. Like those things are fantastic. Those are non-dangerous substances. You don't have any attachment to juices or soda water. There's no brain process attached to those liquids. So that is not a risk on the same level. So just think about the attachment to the stuff, right? This is really the biggest part because our brains are different. We view these things differently. And this is what I want you to be aware of as you're trying to make a decision for you. And this is where I'm going to close, right? All of this information is so that you can make the best decision for you. This is not a right or wrong, yes or no, black and white situation. We are all going to be different. We're all going to have different nuances, different feelings, different brain processes, different habits, right? I want you to have all the information so you can make the best choice for yourself in your sobriety. You have to be really clear on who you are, who your brain is, what the risks are, so you can make an informed decision. And the last thing I'm going to say is I do want to share some actual research with you on non-alcoholic drinks, right? And this might really surprise you. I was pretty surprised there was even a study, to be honest. And this was research done in 2022. And this breadth of research will grow massively as the mocktail market is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The younger generations are not partaking in alcohol like my older generations were. So the landscape is changing in a huge way, and there will be a ton more research on this topic. But here's what they say in this research paper I was reading. The effects of these products, non-alcoholic beers and spirits, the effects of these products on people with alcohol use disorder or with a heavy or high risk drinking pattern, the craving and desire to drink have been found to increase after the consumption of non-alcoholic drinks. In addition, in this population, alcohol-related cues might trigger physiological responses similar to those experienced when using alcohol. And this is everything we just talked about in this episode. And that is research, science-backed research. Yes, because I am that kind of nerd, I actually read the research papers. And yes, they are very difficult to read. They're hard to understand. I do the same thing with skincare. I read all those research papers too. But just be aware, again, I want you to make the best decision for you and your recovery. And this is the information that you need to have to make an informed decision. I hope you got so much valuable information in this episode. If you're struggling with any of these issues and you're ready to really get serious, like you're done screwing around with all the starts and stops and relapses in day one again, and you want support and private coaching with me, you're welcome to book a call. It's addictionunlimited.com/call. And we can have a quick chat. You actually talk to me and we'll have a quick chat and see if we're a good fit to work together. No hard sales. If working with me isn't your right move, I can definitely steer you the right direction and tell you what to focus on next. So addictionunlimited.com/call. It's free. I'll link it in the show notes as well. I hope this episode was super eye-opening for you, because these are advanced recovery concepts and things that you don't necessarily know if you don't have someone teaching you. I had to learn this stuff too. I just happened to learn it in 12 steps. So if you know someone who has had these same questions, or you think would love to hear this valuable information, share the episode with them. This is the stuff we need to be talking about to stay healthy, stay strong, and really nurture powerful sobriety so you can get the life you really want and get your freedom back and not be a slave to alcohol and now be a slave to the freaking non-alcoholic drink. That's not fun. That's not what we get sober for. Okay, let's live our best lives and do the best that we can. I love you guys. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'll see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.